I got to a point where I realized that money alone just wasn't doing it for me, and I had to do something with a bigger purpose and something in the creative field. And I've always loved fashion, loved watches, but I never thought I'd be able to start a watch company, which is what made me want to do it.
Hello friends, welcome to Convos with me, Cathy Clark. Gary and I are the lead pastors at Hillsong Church in the UK, and I'm so happy to have you join us in the conversation today. We started Convos as a podcast, which you can find on iTunes or our Hillsong London website, but we thought it'd be fun to invite you into the room. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this raw, much less edited version of Convos with Cathy. Let's just talk about your business to start with. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, of course. So Vitae is Latin for life.
Yeah.
And our whole mantra is to be the fashion brand changing lives. So simply we're a watch brand, and whenever we sell a watch, we help support a child-free education across sub-Saharan Africa.
Love that.
So we provide 2 sets of school uniform, or we provide a solar light. Those are the 2 projects we've got going at the moment. So yeah, that's what we do.
Awesome. Okay, I want to ask you, why watches? Where did the interest in watches come from?
Yeah, it's crazy. So at the time, I was actually working in the city as a recruiter, and I was making really good money, but I got to a point where I realized that money alone just wasn't doing it for me, and I had to do something with a bigger purpose and something in the creative field. And I've always loved fashion, loved watches, but I never thought I'd be able to start a watch company, which is what made me want to do it. So I just got obsessed with it. I was researching day in, day out. And then it got to a point where I had the phone numbers of 30 factories on WhatsApp, and then I would screenshot one conversation, send it to the other factory to get the prices down, so that the little money I had was able to start the company. And then, we've just been going from there.
So have you got a Vitae watch on today?
I sure do.
So do I.
Nice.
Very happy with that. Well, that was a good one. So how many different watches have you produced?
So in essence, we've got 16 variants on our site right now.
Yeah.
But we're going through a really big growth phase. So we're actually launching another 18 by the end of the year. And then, we've got loads of other crazy products to come as well.
Yeah.
So, we're growing.
Okay. So it would be a big step just launching out and starting a watch brand. I'm just like, how did you start? Because you didn't have a big wealthy person coming behind you and going, well, this is a great idea, we want to back you, I'm going to give you £100,000
I wish.
and off you go. Yeah, of course you would wish. Everyone would want that. But it wasn't like that, was it?
No. So as I said, I was working in the city. I'd saved up, it wasn't even a lot of money. I'd saved up about 7,000, and that was meant to go towards a house deposit. So one day I managed to come home and convince my wife to allow me to quit my high-paying job and use the money that we'd saved up towards a house to start a business in a field that I had no experience or knowledge in at all.
Yeah.
And thankfully she said yes. So
why did she say yes?
I don't know. I think she's always known that I was a visionary of some sorts. When we first met, she was 19, I was 20, and I was running a business at the time, which was a sports academy. And then due to government cutbacks, after a while, I had to close that down and go to work in the city. But I think she'd always seen that I always had that entrepreneurial buzz about me. So when I came with the idea, she probably did have her reservations, but I think she saw how much research I'd put into it and how passionate I was about the idea. And she backed me. So
she was prepared to give up the money that you jointly saved for your house deposit.
Yep.
And you put that into starting the business.
Yeah. So again, it wasn't a lot of money, but with that money, we were able to build what we have today. We were able to bring in some influencers, put some money towards marketing, bring in our first batch of watches, and we scaled it up from there.
Yeah. What did you see Vitae London looking like back then?
It's crazy because I think as time goes on, vision evolves. So when we first launched, it was an idea I had. I'd seen all these other brands do really well, and I just had this kind of stubborn spirit that was just like, if those brands can do well, and I don't think their designs are going to be as good as the ones I'm going to bring out, they're not making an impact in the world. Like, why shouldn't I be able to build this business? I just saw a business that could compete in the marketplace with any of the big emerging brands. And the vision is still pretty much the same, but it's just that there's a lot more clarity in how to get there as time has gone on, for sure.
All right. So how did you see the social, well, I'll say the social justice side of things? How did you imagine that would work out?
Yeah, it's interesting because I often share this, but my dad was the first in my family line to learn to read and write.
Right.
So he's from Ghana, but he's actually from like the villages in Ghana. And then through learning to read and write, he was able to break a generational poverty that was in our family for years and years. And just hearing his story really kind of inspired me and pushed me to want to start this. So I just want to be able to remove the barriers to education for as many children as possible across the continent, because it is the area in the world where there's the highest rates of children not in primary school education, and that correlates with it being the only area in the world where poverty has increased in the past 25 years, whereas every other area is decreased. So I just think there's a powerful correlation between the two. And we just see as our business scales, instead of my wife and I at the time being able to put in a bit of money every month to support a few children, as the business scales, it's a lot more sustainable. We can impact thousands now. That's how I see it. I just see us removing barriers to education for as many children as possible.
Yeah, and education is really important, isn't it?
So crucial, for sure.
Is there any particular area that you focus on with helping with education? Yeah,
so at the moment it's 2 key areas, 2 projects, and it's across the countries of South Africa, Zimbabwe, Lesotho, Uganda, and Ghana.
Wow.
And the key projects at the moment, one being school uniform. So for some of our collections, whenever you buy a watch, you provide a child with a full set of school uniform, 2 full sets of school uniform.
Yeah.
And then our more recent project is whenever a watch is sold or a signet ring, we then provide a solar lamp. Meaning that children who would have trekked for hours at night time or would have had to burn harmful fuels or kerosene in order to study at night can now study in the comfort of their home. Doesn't cost them a thing, and it's so beautiful to see the impact of that, because it not only affects them, often the child who they play with across the street will now come and study with them. Their siblings are impacted just because of one solar lamp. That's been a really, really amazing thing to be able to witness. Is your because I'm just thinking of your inspiration, a large part of your inspiration behind all of this is obviously your dad. Is your dad still alive? Yes, he is. So do you ever sit down and have a chat with him and tell him and share with what you're doing and what your thoughts are? We do often. It was his birthday just yesterday, and we were talking in general about life, and I'd just come back from America, so he was asking me about that trip. And I think it was funny because when I first started the business, because he had seen the money I was making in the city, he was a bit concerned about me starting it. And obviously rightfully so, every parent would be. But with time, it's just been amazing to have him become like our biggest ambassador. And just, it's super humbling to know that because he broke that curse, because he broke through that poverty barrier, it's impacted me, and now through that we've impacted thousands. So it's amazing to be able to discuss that for sure. Yeah, he must be so proud of you. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm sure he will. I'll tell you, he's very proud of you, I'm sure. So was there any other really defining moments for you as a child growing up? Yeah, I'd say one of my key defining moments would have been, so I was 11 years old. I gained a scholarship into a prestigious boarding school. Wow. So I ended up going, it's in an area called Stourbridge near Birmingham. So that for me was a real like eye-opener, because for the first time in my whole life, I was different. I was one of only a few black children in the school. Okay. And I came from, like, we were living on a council estate. I'm one of 7 children. So that when I was really young, there was a point where there was 9 of us in like a 2-bed flat. So coming out of that environment and then being in this boarding school where I was only there because I had like passed some exams and other people were just there because they had the money for it. And one real defining moment in all of that was we went to play another boarding school in a game of rugby. We ended up losing. So it wasn't a boarding school, it was a local school. And then when we lost that game, our team referred to the other team as council estate scum, not realizing I'd grown up on a council estate myself. Mm-hmm. So I think that was the first time in my life I'd seen there was an imbalance in the world. And I think in my heart, I think it stirred something up to kind of level up the playing field for sure.
Wow. Are you grateful for the opportunity of going to the boarding school?
Yeah, very grateful. I think it's shaped me as a person a lot. Yeah. It's enabled me to be in different spaces and be able to navigate with people from all walks of life. So it definitely was a baptism of fire, but a good one for sure. For sure.
All right. And your brothers and sisters, did any of them go to school at all?
It was just me.
Were you the one with all the brains? How did that happen?
No, like most of my siblings are probably more intelligent than me, but there was just a real like wave of it happening when it was time for me to go to secondary school. That a lot of Ghanaian parents were sending their children to tutoring, then sending them to boarding schools and getting scholarships into private schools as well. Yeah. So yeah, it was just me that ended up going.
Okay. So then what are some of the big challenges that you see for young people who are aspiring entrepreneurs and that want to get into doing something successful with their life?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like the biggest hindrance is often mentally. Okay. It's like, I always describe it as so many people are intimidated by the scale of their dream that they end up doing nothing at all. Yeah. So it's like their dream is this massive mountain which stands before them, that could have been put in them by God, and it stands before them, and they're so intimidated by it that they take no steps. Yeah. Whereas like the Bible clearly says, don't despise the small. So if they can just do that one thing every single day, that one step today, another step tomorrow, before they know it, they'll look back and realize they've scaled that massive mountain and they've built that business they wanted to. But yeah, so many people come to me with these ideas. I ask them, okay, amazing. What have you done so far? What steps have you put in? And 9 times out of 10, it's just nothing. They're just asking questions as opposed to actually going out and trying to take some active steps. So I always try to encourage people to start small, to do one thing today towards your larger vision and just keep doing that.
Okay. So I'm just interested then for you personally, what were some of those really small steps that you took?
Yeah, for sure.
Back initially when you wanted to start out with Vitae?
Yeah, so for me, it was just constant research. It was looking at my competitor brands, even though I didn't exist yet, but looking at the competitor brands and seeing what they were doing well, seeing what enabled them to grow in a rapid way, seeing what kind of formulas and tactics they would have used. And it was the outreach to the factories, it was getting samples, it was doing surveys and getting people to give feedback on those samples. So I was collecting data, collecting information. It's just all these little steps that didn't cost me an arm and a leg, but enabled me to actually get to a point where we could start. Whereas a lot of people just don't want to do those steps. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
I guess a lot of people would start, they would get stuck in that spot where they've got a great idea. But you just get stuck in that spot.
Exactly. And
then, and especially if because you were doing this pretty much on your own. Whereas it might even be different if there's a few of you and you're there to encourage one another on and stir one another on. But when you're just there on your own, that takes a lot of courage and a lot of guts to get up there and do stuff.
It's weird, like, people say I'm courageous and things like that, but I've never seen it as courage. It's just, it got to a point where I was just frustrated. I couldn't do that job anymore. I physically couldn't get up. I didn't have the motivation for it. Sometimes I say to myself, I really wish I could just be a 9-to-5 guy, because life would be sweet. Like, wake up in the morning, do a 9-to-5, go home, watch Netflix, job done. But I'm just not wired. I just can't do it. So yeah, I don't know if it's courage or just the fact that I'm just wired this way, and this was what I was made to do. Yeah.
What time do you get up in the morning?
Usually about 6.
And then what do you do first thing?
So it's been a bit all over the place recently, but usually first thing is getting my daughter ready. So before our daughter, so she's 2 years old, I would have more time to like rest, relax, and get set up properly. But often it's getting our daughter ready and then dropping her off. And then usually in my drive to the gym is when I can pray, have my quiet time, have my workout in the gym, which needs to be more consistent because it hasn't been recently.
Okay.
And then I get on with my day from there. So yeah.
All right. And then what time would you go to bed at night, do you think, roughly?
That's where it's a mess right now because we've got a new season of watches coming out. I've been sleeping at ridiculous hours as if I've started the business again. Yeah. But when I'm more disciplined, I'm usually in bed by like 10, which is good.
Okay, that's quite disciplined.
Yeah, when I am disciplined.
Yes, yeah. But then that goes to show as well that when you're starting something, when you're entrepreneurial, when you're really getting something going, that it actually takes a lot of hard, I want to swear right now, work. A lot of hard work.
Yeah, it does. It's like it's cutthroat and it's relentless and you have to just keep going. Yeah. But there does get to a point where you break through a barrier and then you realize, oh wow, we do actually have a bit of money, we can bring on some more people to our team. You break through another barrier, and so it is extremely hard work, but if it wasn't hard, then anyone would do it.
That's
so
right. That's it.
It is what it is.
What do you say to yourself in those really, really tough times?
I just have to reinvigorate myself with the vision.
Yeah.
I just have to remember the lives we've already impacted when we had no money, when we had nothing. The fact that we were able to do what we've already done, to me shows the potential for what we can do. Yeah. So that's what keeps me going. That's what drives me. And to be honest, there's no other option. There's no plan B. So I've put myself in a position where there is no other option and I have to go all out for this vision.
All right. So this is a question I love asking people. How on earth did you find yourself in Hillsong Church?
So my journey is super interesting. So my dad's actually a pastor.
Is he?
Yeah. So he's known as a bishop because he's the lead pastor of a church. Yeah. He oversees like 8 campuses.
Is that in London?
In London, yeah. So there's 3 in the UK, some in Europe, some in America, and some in Ghana and Nigeria.
Right.
So that was my journey growing up. Pastor's kid, which is
I had no idea.
Yeah,
you were a pastor's kid.
Yeah, so that was my journey growing up, and then a few years back, I got married, and then my wife and I were kind of assessing for ourselves where we wanted to be planted, where we want to be. And my dad's church is amazing, but one thing I would say is that there are like heavy cultural elements with the church.
Right.
So often it was difficult to bring in friends from my workplace who might be white, Asian, or from any other background. So there was a bit of a disconnect there. And we were just looking for home for ourselves. So that's kind of what led to Hillsong, but it wasn't even a part of the plan. A friend of mine invited me to the Bermondsey campus, and then a good friend of mine now, but at the time Antonio came up to me and he was like the warmest, friendliest person ever. Never forget that. And then a good friend of mine now, a guy called Clay, was there as well, who actually went to college with my wife, and there was just all these other connections. And then it was like week 2 of being in church, and my friend Santhi, who I knew from outside of church before, because I was in a gospel band with my brothers, was like, Will, you've got to get involved, you've got to join the worship team. I was like, I've just got here, calm down. But like after a month of being in church, like I was serving in church, and then just got carried away. I just never looked back. And for me, what I love about our church is that for me it was really a place of refuge. Because being a pastor's kid is pretty tough. You constantly feel like there's eyes on you. You feel like the standard of living that people have for their children is different from what they have for you. Is as if they hold you to a higher standard. So that was difficult, and I kind of enjoyed the fact that I could be anonymous in church, the fact that I could be not hidden, but just be myself. I loved that. Especially Bermondsey was there for me because that's the area near the area I grew up in. My college was in Bermondsey, so it definitely felt like it was made for me. Yeah,
good. And how did your parents feel about you going to another church? Was that an easy transition for them?
It was so tough at first. It was like for me, it was never even an option to consider asking them to join another church. So I was actually balancing both for a season. Yeah. And then it just got to a point where obviously you can't really do both.
Yeah.
And it was a really difficult conversation. And I think why it was difficult is because, and I definitely see it from their perspective, it's hard for them to separate their life's work and their church from themselves.
Yeah.
So it kind of felt like I was turning my back on them when that was never the case. So I think with time, they've seen that wasn't it, and that I'd made the right choice. So
I get that, because obviously Gary and I are pastors of church, and it's not just a job that you go to.
It's not at all.
It's your life.
It's everything.
Yes. So it does involve your family, your children, your friends. It's just your life.
Yep.
And it becomes 24/7 your life. So, I think I can empathize with your parents a little, and kind of going, I know you want all your kids together and so on. But they must be very happy when they see how you're going and how your life's going.
Yeah, I think they get it now. I think they understand. I think for me, being in our church, it has been so healthy for me and so helpful for me. I feel like I was going through a season where I was feeling a bit distanced from the church. So again, going back to that point of it being a refuge, it was a real place where I felt like I could relate to so many people in the room. It was a place that just felt like home instantly.
Yeah. All right. So you've already mentioned once you just experiencing that sense of racism when you went to boarding school for the first time. Has there been any other experiences where you've felt?
Oh, I've had loads.
Yeah.
There's the microaggressions all the time, which is it is what it is. But like even a couple of weeks, I think it was a month or two ago, I dropped a young guy who actually goes to our church. I dropped him home. But actually we'd gone to his house. We were outside the house having a chat. He was like, I need to pop home to get something. And he was going to come back to the car. So I'm in my car and 15 minutes have gone. He's still not back. I'm confused. I call him. Then I walk out and there's loads of police around. And then he gets arrested. He has to go to prison for 24 hours. Wow. And he's done nothing wrong. Mistaken identity. Yeah. He matches the description. Yeah. So it's just things like this. And same thing happened to me when I was 16. Police officer said I matched the description of something that had happened in the local area. Okay. I had my head smashed into a shop front. It was just so embarrassing to have all these people looking around, walking past as it was happening, being handcuffed, being put in the back of the car, but I'd done nothing.
So wrong.
There's different things we encounter and face, even in the business.
Yeah, I was thinking about in the business world.
Yeah, like raising finance. So we had an amazing healthy track record with £7,000. We'd managed to generate that into a few $100,000 in revenue. And even with that track record, it was hard to find investment. Whereas I know people who don't look like me, who can have a pitch deck and have never even made money, who can raise money just like that. It's difficult, but then I just can't focus on it. Otherwise I'll get depressed. So I just try to focus on what I can do to get around it, and just work 10 times harder than the next person.
Yeah. If I were to say to you that I thought the evidence of racism was getting better today than it was maybe 10 years ago, what would you say to that?
I'd say that on the surface level, it could appear that way. Yeah. But I think with racism, often it's systematic. So it's things that you can't see. It's things that are sometimes even intangible. Yeah. So on a surface level, yes, but even recently, I think it's actually gotten worse again. Right. With the rise of nationalism. There was a stat that came out that I think by 2040, that America would be more people of color than white people. Right. And then it's crazy how when that stat came out, nationalism is just broken out. And then, people who are guarding their nation, who are saying us and them, are really coming to the forefront and being empowered to spew out that hatred. It's difficult to say racism has improved, because technically it has, because 50 years ago there was segregation in America, etc. So we can argue that it has, but at the same time there is still so much further we need to go. So yeah.
Okay. I was just thinking, your daughter's only 2, isn't she? Yeah, so she wouldn't really know anything about that. Experience doing that at this point in time. Okay, so what do you think that white people could do better to be a part of the solution for racism?
Yeah, I think acknowledgement and discussion goes so far.
Yeah.
And I just think compassion goes so far.
Yeah.
So being able to see things from other people's perspective, trying to put on other people's lenses, and just see the world from another vantage point. Because aside from that, there's always just going to be an even wider and wider divide. And it's so polarizing, and I feel like we're getting to a point where people are just throwing out opinions at one another without actually saying, wait, is there some truth in what they're saying? Is there some truth in what the other side is saying? Can we meet in the middle somewhere? So I think even just discussion is going to go so far in terms of enabling people to see and feel and hear what other people are going through. Yeah, for sure.
If you could have a discussion around a table, who would you like in the room? Who would you like to have in the room?
I'd love a discussion with loads of church leaders.
Yeah. Of
different races.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of maybe white church leaders don't know the struggles of a lot of black Christians coming up.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's actually a real big movement of black Christians moving away from the church and no longer Christian. And it's difficult to kind of condense it, but when you look at, there's like negative doctrines that's being put out there saying that Christianity was brought to us by slavery, etc., etc. And then when no white church leaders denounce these things, and then there's still images of white Jesus, etc., all these other elements, and when this is never denounced, there's black people in churches just going in, day out, that don't feel like they're heard, they're represented, they don't feel like maybe their perspective is ever discussed, and the hurt is ever brought to the forefront, which causes a lot of them to be brought away by false doctrine. It causes a lot of people to then distance themselves from the church in general. So I just think more discussions, more church leaders coming and denouncing things that may be within the Christian, the church setting, that aren't in line with the Bible, and that aren't in line with treating black people as equals. So I think that would be super helpful.
Do you see there a little bit of a difficult situation with church leaders denouncing comments by certain other people?
It's so tough. It's and then it starts full, and then it goes back to the point earlier about it being polarizing.
Yeah.
So it may not even have to be in a public forum all the time. I think maybe even some more private forums where these discussions can take place, where it can be in a nice, healthy environment, would be amazing. Because people just coming out and making statements. Yeah. But at the same time, statements are made by some church leaders that would offend black people, but people don't think about how it could be viewed, how things could have been said differently. I hate stating specifics. It's difficult to do that. But it's just about thinking about a wider context and understanding that our churches are multicultural. They're made up of all people. So ensuring that what we do, what we stand for, is all inclusive and not
All right then. So let me make it a bit more personal and just talk about our church, not the church generally, but our church, which should be Hillsong Church, and you're based in Bermondsey.
Yeah, that's right.
So Bermondsey, Dominion Theatre, the sort of central London church. How do you think we could do things better?
The thing with our church, I think we do it pretty well. As
okay, what do you think we do pretty well?
I just think the fact that I feel like there's representation in leadership. I think that there's people of all races, creeds who can make a decision, who would be able to speak. Like I've even spoken with Phil, and he's told me times where he's had chats with Gary about race. So it's like the right people are in the right position to be able to have these discussions. So I definitely think that's what our church already does well. But the issue is it's an issue with the wider church. And even though our church can be doing things well, people can still feel like they're disconnected with the church at large, if that makes sense. And often, even as a church, we may work with certain pastors or people who represent people who are maybe racist, or do you know what I mean? Who we could perceive as against us as a people. So it's a really, really difficult thing to balance. And I just think, we just need more, especially in the private sector, more conversations, more so that people can heal, so that people can have these wounds opened up and heal from this, and less people taken away.
Okay. Do you ever find yourself in situations where you can be a bit of the bridge and bridging the gap between racist views, even whether I'm not talking necessarily just in church, but even in your business world?
I try my best to. I try to. One of the key things that I'm most passionate about is just highlighting to the world that we aren't the stereotypes that people have placed upon us. And it's another thing that drives me to work 10 times harder, because I know there's thousands of young black boys that potentially look up to me, that want to start a business one day, and that
could I just interrupt you for a second? Say, do you think there could even be white boys that can look up to you?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm not saying it's just specifically black boys, but I just mean in general. I think one thing, as small as this sounds, is just going all out, carrying myself in excellence to kind of knock down those false pretenses and those things that have been said about us. So that's one thing I try my best to do. And again, conversations. I try to have like honest chats with people, especially when it's things that I don't feel are maybe right. But said in love, and not said with I'm right, you're wrong. It's actually, could you see it from this perspective maybe? So
if we're going to continue to just embody Christ, then the exciting thing is that we can actually shock people.
For sure.
We don't see necessarily colour, but we just see a human being that has so much to offer and so much to give.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's just, again, it's just always a tricky balance. And I think even I think it is important to see colour. So even in saying not seeing colour, I think it is important to, because you can't avoid it.
No,
it's to acknowledge, but I think it's putting things in place that are intentional about empowering people of all colours, which is what I think our church does so well. For sure.
Great. All right. I want to know, I'm really interested to know if you feel like God is really speaking to you about something at the moment, and what that would be. So for me, I feel like so I actually made it the phrase for our company. I've changed our catchphrase recently, and it's live without limits. And I feel like God's been really speaking to me about just the limits we place on our minds, the limits that others may have placed on us, the limits we see in our circumstance and our environments, and just removing those limits and seeing how big we can dream and how far we can go. So even with our next range of watches, I've named it after the council estate I grew up on. Just to kind of empower the people from that area, from that estate, that look, this may have been where we started, but it doesn't have to be the finish line. And to just remove those limits and to, again, dream big, start small. Awesome.
Thank you.
Have you ever been to Ghana?
Yes, I've been several times. I was actually there last year in November and December, so I was invited to a dinner with Prince Charles out there,
Wow.
which was interesting, very cool.
Yeah. So Prince Charles himself, he was actually there.
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah. Did you have a chat with him?
Yeah, we had a I think he mistook me for someone else at one point, and I just went along with it. He was like, he came up to me, he's like, "Oh, you're into fashion, right?" I was like, "Wait, how the heck does he know who I am?" Then he was like, and I was like, "Yeah," and then he was like, "Oh, were you on the Prince's Trust?" And I was like, I kind of lied, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I think so." I just went. He was like, "Yeah, I've seen you around." I was like, "Okay, fake." But yeah, that was it was a great privilege. But yeah, when I was out there, we managed to go and visit again one of the centers where we support children.
Great, yeah.
And it's just so powerful to hear the stories of people that maybe weren't going to school as consistently, couldn't study as consistently, and now thankfully, because of the little that we've done, it's not even a lot. It's made an impact. So yeah, I love it.
Great. All right. What was the topic when you did the TED Talk? What was your topic?
What was my? Purpose, finding purpose in the pain.
Okay.
So I was literally I did my whole talk on how the pain of what I had gone through and the pain of what my dad went through actually equipped and enabled me to find purpose in starting my business. And how if we can dig deep and if we can look at the pain of our life, it's often the thing that agitates you the most is often the thing you're meant to solve. So just changing from a victim mentality to a problem solving mentality, and solving the problem for yourself and others, is what it was all about. So yeah, purpose in the pain.
Great. I think that's fantastic. I am so proud of what you've done. And as I said, I'm sure your parents are as well. But just the fact that people of your caliber, your quality, your sense of hard work, your sense of love for the church, love for God, people like you are in church. And it's people like you that will change others' perspective on what the church is going to look like, because ultimately, God is the answer. We realize that there's lots of problems in the world.
Of course.
Many, many problems, whether it be racial problems or financial issues or one people group fighting against another people group, wars, all of that. But we know that God can, and as people align themselves with God and the Word of God, then those things can get sorted out. And I believe they can get sorted out. For sure. And that we can keep moving forward in that way. So I'm just excited that there's people like you that are becoming a voice, that you are becoming a model for younger people, because there is a generation that are watching you, and you are leading, and you're leading the way in lots of things, whether it be business, whether it be just being the character of the person that you are. So I'm excited about the future.
Thank you so much.
I feel like going amen. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear from you too. Check us out on Instagram at Convos with Cathy. If you have any questions or thoughts about what we've talked about today, or even suggestions of a topic you'd like to hear about, feel free to DM us. We'd love to connect with you. Till next time, see ya.